Hello everyone. This is the 27th part of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Chapter 85, Aquatic Showdown, Unexposed. Sitting by a bank in the Great Lake, soaking his feet in the cold water, Quinn readied himself for another deep dive into its depths. It had been a few weeks since Quinn had tried to get close to the Kraken. He had been practicing his swimming near the surface, away from the Kraken's main body. He had been practicing his magic so that when he did approach the Kraken once more, he wouldn't be helpless. Well, I'm not exactly helpless. I could injure it and take my chance. Yeah, but that would probably not go my or the Kraken's way, grumbled Quinn, while swinging his soaking feet in the lake water. Quinn was sure that he could reasonably injure the Kraken. Last year, while under the Sin Curse, Quinn had learned a lot of destructive magic and had practiced it even more. The Room of Requirement had dealt with a lot of abuse from Quinn, who had a penchant for destruction. So Quinn was sure that if he turned his magic against the Kraken, he would make the legendary monster feel a lot of pain and rip and detach at least one of its tentacles from its body. But at the same time, Quinn wasn't sure what he would do when it came to defending. The water was the Kraken's territory, his home ground, and Quinn was an outsider, playing an away game, which meant that Kraken had the field advantage. Quinn had done some mental simulations, that is, he had imagined how things would go if he fought the Kraken. In lots of them, he ended up crushed by a Kraken's tentacle or eaten by the Kraken, or being repeatedly smacked into the lakebed till he was broken and dead. I wanted to say that our battle would be legendary, smirked Quinn, but sighed while shaking his head. Alas, it won't happen, but maybe. No, it won't happen. Quinn stood up and walked into the lake, water climbing up his body as he wadded forward. When his feet no longer touched the ground and had swum a distance from the shore, he stopped himself from floating and let himself sink into the water, disappearing from the surface. In the deep blue and somewhat murky green, he closed his eyes and held his breath. Afterward, Quinn brought his hands to the sides of his neck and sunk deeper into the water. Magic flowed in his body and thrummed as it showed its charm. Quinn opened his mouth and let water flow in, and a few seconds later, bubbles emerged from beneath Quinn's hand. He opened his eyes and put away his hands from his neck, which revealed 3 large slits just below his ears, flapping in the cold air. Gills were a respiratory organ found in many aquatic organisms that extracted dissolved oxygen from water and expelled carbon dioxide. Gills were tissues that were like short threads, protein structures called filaments. Each filament contained a blood capillary network that provided a large surface area for exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide. Human transfiguration was a sub-branch of transfiguration and a kind of transformation where one transfigures human body parts, or an entire human being into another form. Human transfiguration on oneself was an arduous process, because you added organic parts to the human body that weren't part of the original human physiology. If not performed correctly and carefully, then the caster would be in a world of complications. Adding gills to himself for oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange under the water was a simple enough idea that Quinn borrowed from Harry Potter and Victor Crumb's performance in the second task of the Triwizard Tournament. Harry had used gillyweed, a magical plant, to achieve underwater breathing. When eaten, it gave the consumer gills, allowing them to breathe underwater and webbing between the fingers and toes, allowing them to swim underwater with ease. Victor Crumb chose to attempt human transfigure on himself and tried to transform himself into a shark, but managed only to transfigure his head. Still, it worked well enough for him to reach the merpeople village because the shark head had gills that allowed him to breathe underwater. So Quinn combined both of those examples and gave him a pair of gills without turning into another species. He studied the anatomy of the gills from multiple aquatic species before he was able to clearly understand how the gills worked. From there on, Quinn had to transfigure gill structures with filaments that had a blood capillary network. He connected those capillaries to his own natural blood vessel network. Finally, he blocked his windpipe so that the water wouldn't go in his lungs and diverted to the gills, completing an artificial aquatic respiratory system in his body. The first gulp of icy lake water felt like the breath of life. He took another swallow of water and felt it pass smoothly through his gills, sending oxygen back to his brain. The oxygen circulation was established, and Quinn's body got a healthy dose of oxygen from the water. All right, everything seems to be working fine, thought Quinn, intaking more water to suck the oxygen out of the liquid. The gill flaps closed when Quinn took in water, and his mouth shut when the gill flaps opened to let out the water. Good, let's go. Quinn's magic leaked into the surrounding water, causing it to react with a short wave of vibration before it settled down to normalcy, but Quinn knew that it wasn't back to normal. With a single thought, the water reacted and pushed Quinn forward. He left behind a jet of water as Quinn's speed in water increased, and he zoomed across the lake towards the largest resident of the area. If you looked closely, it'd be possible to see Quinn covered in a teardrop-shaped envelope of calm water, as the turbulent water around that stable envelope made Quinn move inside the lake. After practicing for a few weeks, Quinn had learned a lot about using water magic to practice underwater swimming. Quinn had found that he needed to maintain calm water around him, as steady and stable water was ideal for proper oxygen circulation. The turbulent water hindered Quinn's ability to take in water, so to solve that, he tried many options, like covering his face with stable water, but that failed the integrity test and would turn turbulent after a certain speed. After many tests and configurations, Quinn had found that covering his entire body with a teardrop-shaped stable water cover was better, as not only did it pass the integrity test, it also spared Quinn's body from the water resistance he experienced while learning how to use water magic for swimming. Hydrodynamics for the win, smiled Quinn as he exerted more magic, pushing his speed up as he moved towards the Kraken. What previously took tens of minutes of physical swimming, now with the help of water magic, it took under 5 minutes for Quinn to start from his usual starting point to where the Kraken usually resided. There it is, thought Quinn as a tentacle entered his sight. Quinn stopped at a distance away from the tentacle and took a moment to form his plan. This would be his second encounter with the Kraken, although this time his goal was to at least make sure that the Kraken didn't touch him. That was all he wanted to accomplish today. Let's start. Quinn cracked his knuckles underwater, and the water once again formed a teardrop around Quinn. Quinn, then, contracted his body before extending it straight and shot himself towards the Kraken. Immediately, the Kraken's tentacle twitched as it felt a tiny human moving towards him at a faster speed than before. The next second, 2 tentacles rose from the lake floor and shot towards the smaller figure in the water. Quinn, who registered the twin tentacle pincer attack, immediately shot upward to avoid a tentacle. The next second, though, the other tentacle went upon Quinn, ready to grab him. Oh, no, I'm not going to the surface soon, thought Quinn. The water magic showed its maneuverability advantages as the teardrop cover narrowed. Water forces from different directions came into play, and Quinn moved towards the incoming tentacle, intending to escape its grasp with an aggressive approach. Quinn and the tentacle close onto each other, and at the last second, Quinn spun around the cylindrical body of the tentacle, leaving behind coils of water propulsions around the tentacle's body as he zoomed forward. Yes, celebrated Quinn as he put in more magic into speed and zoomed towards the Kraken's main body while intending to see its face. But the thing about tentacles is that they don't work like hands, they weren't single-jointed limbs and could fold and turn at any point of their length. And the Kraken knew it better than anyone else. So when Quinn escaped its first attempt, both tentacles immediately moved, turning towards Quinn and darting with speed to catch up with Quinn like homing missiles. Quinn, who was zooming forward, felt something behind him and saw that the tentacles he dodged were once again on his tail, and they were much faster than Quinn, so the distance was shortening as he watched them. He knew running away wasn't going to work for long, so he decided to use another branch of magic, a magic that had a massive advantage in his current situation. Turning his body towards the tentacles while still moving away from them, Quinn took a deep breath of water and called upon his magic. The magic from his magical core shot out into the water and waited for Quinn to give the command. Quinn waited, he waited for the tentacles to get closer and closer to each other as they moved nearer to Quinn, patiently watching for the right moment. When they were just about the distance Quinn wanted them to be, he dwelled deep into his memories. Ice. That single word brought him the memories of the chilling freeze of the icy vault, all the time he had spent in the area, feeling the cold seep into his bones. Just for the moment, Quinn felt that he was back in the icy vault, working on the snowflake icicle, trying to get inside the vault. Ice. With that thought, the magic got the command it was waiting for, and it made the wish come true in reality. Ice bloomed in the Great Lake, 2 giant bands of ice formed around the 2 tentacles, working as cuffs when the ice from the band shot towards each other, meeting to lock the tentacles with each other, causing them to slow down and snatch against each other. In an environment where water was everywhere, where the base material for making ice was in so much abundance, Quinn's ice magic worked with greater ease. He was able to push it to greater heights than he had ever reached. More and more ice bands formed around the surface of the tentacles, weighing them down as they locked them to each other. With a smirk on his face, Quinn raised an arm up, and a gigantic upward curving ice barrier formed just as a third tentacle tried to capture Quinn from above. "Ha! I was expecting that," reveled Quinn as he made a fist with his raised hand. The third tentacle, which collided with the barrier, started to freeze as ice formed on its surface, climbing up at an alarming rate. But the next things Quinn saw wiped the smirk off Quinn's face. The initial two tentacles, sinking down because of the ice, moved and tugged to opposite sides. Immediately, there were cracks and crevices appeared in the ice constraints. Quinn's eyes widened as he saw the cracks in the ice. In response, he concentrated his magic to fill those cracks with more ice. But as he did that, he felt something on his side, and when Quinn moved his eyes to the side, he saw a fourth tentacle darting towards him. Motherfuck dash. Quinn tried to curse as he formed an ice sphere around him, and just as the ice sphere was about to complete, the collision with the fourth tentacle happened, sending the ice sphere with Quinn inside rushing to the opposite direction. Shit, he shouted, but underwater all that did was to create a gurgle. The whirling ice sphere stole Quinn's balance, and he tumbled inside for a good couple of seconds before he exerted magic and dissolved the ice sphere, leaving Quinn's body flailing. It took another few seconds before Quinn could regain balance, but he was still moving uncontrollably. Turning back to the direction he was drifting in an attempt to stop himself, Quinn came into another shock. Crap! Scene break. The Slytherin common room was a dungeon-like room with greenish lamps and chairs. This dungeon extended part way under the lake, giving the light in the room a green tinge. The room had lots of low-backed, black and dark green, button-tufted, leather sofas, skulls, and dark wood cupboards. One of the wooden tables had a wizard's chess set on it. The common room was decorated with tapestries featuring the adventures of famous medieval Slytherins. It had quite a dignified atmosphere, albeit quite a cold one. Daphne Greengrass, her sister, Astoria Greengrass, and Tracy Davis were sitting in there. Tracy and Astoria were playing a game of wizard's chess while Daphne was reading a book. There was no one else in the spacious area. So except for the occasional crosstalk between Tracy and Astoria, the only sounds in the room were the ticking of a clock, moving of chess pieces, and turning pages. The three occupants were comfortable in the room's tranquility until a heavy thump broke it. All three girls jumped in their chairs and looked at each other before hastily looking towards the source of the shattering thump. The three girls saw a person pressed up flat against the glass panels that showed the underwater view of the Great Lake. Tracy blinked a couple of times, squinted her eyes to thoroughly look at the person, and her eyes opened when she recognized the person. Quinn! The Greengrass sisters' jaw dropped when it clicked in their minds, and now they could see that the man dressed only in shorts was the Ravenclaw, and their friend, Quinn West. "What in Slytherin's name is he doing there?" asked Astoria as she moved towards the glass panels. "Are those slits on his neck?" pointed out Daphne when she noticed his gills. Tracy and Astoria turned to Daphne and looked at her with a face that said, "That is the first thing you notice." Quinn, who was on the other side of the glass, opened his eyes to see his three Slytherin friends. The three girls watched as Quinn's eyes widened when he noticed them. They saw his jaw drop in shock and then the banging of his head against the glass. Quinn slapped his hand against the glass, and they saw the reddish-yellow glowing words form on the glass. "Not a word to anyone. After a moment, another line formed below the first line. "Not a word. The words stayed there for a few seconds before they disappeared, and the girls saw Quinn push against the glass and swim away. "He didn't say goodbye," commented Astoria as Quinn disappeared away from their sights. This time the older girls looked at Astoria and made faces that said, "That is what you say first." Quinn's sudden visit surprised the three girls enough for them not to notice that he didn't have a wand in his hand. At least then, that is. Scene break. Quinn didn't encounter the Kraken during his journey back to the shore. Just before he got out of the water, Quinn's transfigured gills disappeared, and so did other modifications. He brought his face out of the water and took a couple of deep breaths through his mouth till his lungs were once again filled with oxygen-rich air, and performing as normal. Walking out of the lake, Quinn laid down on the ground and groaned for a good minute before opening his eyes and sighing. I just wanted a peaceful year, and now this happens. While he was sure that Daphne, Tracy, and Astoria wouldn't speak about it to anyone else, he didn't want them to know. A secret was strongest when only one person knew about it. Quinn had no plan of telling them anything about the vault or what he was actually doing there, but he was sure that he was going to have a talk with them. I need to think about what I am going to tell them. Quinn sighed, and then his mind went back to today's encounter with the Kraken. Damn it, that Kraken is a toughie. The number of tentacles is just not fair. I need to get more practice, sighed Quinn before some other things. I need to change some things. Yeah, definitely change some things. The second encounter with the Kraken ended up a failure. Chapter 86, Hosting the Slytherin 3, and Wormtail. The thing about the ambience of the AID office was that the room was designed to make the people who came in feel comfortable. The entire room was set up to create a comforting and inviting environment. It had a lot of elbow room to make the clients feel that the room was spacious and not stuffy. At the same time, the number of knickknacks, decor, and paintings gave the illusion of being in a small space that made the room feel cozy and safe. The walls were painted in a light blue to make the clients more agreeable and relaxed. The plants placed in the room were carefully chosen to provide a fresh aspect to the ambience, making the room feel more organic. The room's entire purpose was to make the person who came in feel comfortable enough to open up about their troubles. To provide a safe space that put them at ease. And the things that tied it everything in the room were the main focus in the room, the host, the person who owned and operated the place. And currently, that host was totally focused on maximizing the comfort level of the people sitting in front of him. Please make yourselves comfortable, stated Quinn with a calm smile on his face. Do you girls want something to drink? I have butterbeer, gilly water, soda, or milkshakes. I have lots of fruits that you can choose from. The eyes of two of the three girls sitting in front of Quinn shined. They spoke up. I want a butterbeer, asked Tracy with a shine in her eyes and joy in her voice. She had some butterbeer for the first time at Hogsmeade and enjoyed it very much. So when Quinn offered, she jumped at it. Gilly water, please, replied Astoria from her chair, looking at the various knickknacks and paintings. The third girl sighed at her two companions before replying. Nothing, thank you. Quinn stood up from behind his desk and walked to his workshop. When he came out with a bottle each of butterbeer and gilly water. Daphne, are you sure you don't want anything? Asked Quinn as he put down the chilled bottles on the coasters on the table in front of Tracy and Astoria. I can brew a pot of tea if you don't want something cold. I have a variety of tea leaves that you can pick from. I would like to know what were you doing in the Great Lake, asked Daphne, making clear eye contact with Quinn. Straight to business. I can respect that, said Quinn sitting back down on his bar stool. What I was doing in the Great Lake? Well, I was swimming, replied Quinn after clearing his throat, hoping that this would clear every doubt. But Quinn knew that he was kidding himself. In late January, persisted the blonde greengrass, with a tone laced with skepticism. She didn't believe Quinn would go for a simple swim in the icy waters. Quinn matched eyes with Daphne and answered with a straight face. Yes, one warming charm, and I was all set for a nice swim. What about the gills beneath your ears? Why were you using magic that isn't taught until the 6th year? Asked Daphne, pushing for more information when she heard the short answer from Quinn. Quinn snorted and scoffed at those words. He bragged with self-confidence laced in his tone, I'm the smartest student at Hogwarts. Year restrictions have never stopped me and never will. I wanted to go deep diving, so I gave myself a pair of gills, nothing complex. He took out his fake wand with his right hand and waved it to perform magic on his left hand. The digits of his left hand twitched, lengthened a bit, and gained another joint. Flexing his fingers, Quinn showed the girls his fingers with 3 interphalangeal joints and a thumb with 2 joints. I have enough mastery over magic to perform partial human transfiguration over limited parts of my body, boasted Quinn. Even if he was boasting, Quinn was still holding back what he was capable of. He was more advanced than what he was letting on. Now that I think about that, I need to improve on that thing, thought Quinn. He needed to make certain changes before he went back for another confrontation with the Kraken. The younger Greengrass was holding the bottle of gilly water with both her hands and was looking at the bottle's label when she asked, "Then why did you crash into the glass?" All three girls remembered the shocked expression on his face when he was pressed against the glass. Quinn was clearly not expecting to be there nor wanted them to see him, so something had happened when he was swimming, and with Astoria's question, all three stared at Quinn, expecting an answer. The little one knows how to talk. Of course, that would turn in the other direction, thought Quinn with a straight face before speaking. I kind of got flicked by the giant squid when I was running away from a flurry of grindylows. The giant squid took me by surprise, so I ended up casting a spell at it, and then it flung me away with its tentacle because of that spell. To keep his story believable, Quinn decided to stick to the facts that he had experienced. He regularly met grindylows while he practiced his water magic and ran away from them to practice his speed, and the Kraken did push him away because of the ice magic. By spinning his actual experiences into fake explanations, Quinn was making sure to establish a believable story, plus it allowed him to present it believably and confidently. And since this could be seen as dangerous, I asked you three not to tell anyone, finished Quinn, rolling his eyes as he air-quoted the word dangerous. Quinn was handing the girls the initiative, but anything that followed was under control. He waited for any question because that allowed him to answer questions they bothered to ask and not anything extra that he might speak about if he took the lead. "Can we also go swimming?" "That would be fun," suggested Tracy, thinking about playing in the water, having fun. Quinn grabbed the opportunity when he saw it and steered the conversation in the presented direction. "Sure, I can teach you a simple bubblehead charm that would allow you to breathe underwater, but whether you're able to learn it, it is up to you. And if you guys do learn it, let's do this when the weather gets warmer. I don't want you guys to get sick." But you went for a swim in the cold, why not us?" whined Tracy, slightly frowning towards Quinn. "It will take you a lot of time to learn the bubblehead charm if you are able to learn it. The spell is a 6th-year charm," reasoned Quinn, ignoring the glare from Daphne. He knew the glare was because he had just said that year restrictions didn't hinder him, and now he was saying that they wouldn't learn it because it was a higher year spell. If you want to go for a swim at the surface, that doesn't warrant the bubblehead charm. The water is freezing, you know, even with the warming charm, you still feel the cold against the skin. Believe me, most people don't like it. I didn't mind it, but I'm not sure if you'd like it. Quinn wasn't lying about the cold against the skin. He felt the bitter chill against his skin the entire time he was inside the lake. Quinn didn't heat the water envelope around him to make himself comfortable because he just didn't mind the cold and was used to it, but not all could stay in that cold. While saying that, the workshop's door pushed open, and Luna came skipping out with a large sheet of old parchment in her hands. "I did it," she exclaimed, looking at Quinn, unrolling the parchment and showing a detailed map drawn on the parchment. It was mud rue-based ink. It reacted with pidecori and ephamic tarring potion. Luna giggled as she pushed the parchment near Quinn, showing it to Quinn. The blonde Ravenclaw wasn't even looking at the three Slytherin girls. Quinn took the map parchment from her and gave it a look over. From Luna's excited reaction, Quinn knew that she had gotten the correct potions and herbs. He still observed the parchment to judge the quality of her brew, as he wanted to determine her progress in potion brewing, and he was pleased to see that she had done a more than decent brew for her first time brewing the potion. "Good job, Luna," praised Quinn, smiling at the parchment before smiling at his friend junior assistant. "And you are right, it was pidecori and ephamic tarring potion. It was in the riddle. It was so clear when I finally noticed." "You hid it so cleverly," beamed Luna, swinging with joy in her spot. She was so happy that she couldn't contain herself. Quinn handed the map parchment back to Luna and spoke, "How about you go and explore with the map? Revealing the map was only step 1, you still have to find the treasure." "Really?" exclaimed Luna, but then she looked back at the workshop and spoke. Her voice didn't have as much excitement as before, "But I still have to clean up the equipment I used." Quinn chuckled and responded, "I will clean it. You go and have fun." Luna squealed and gave Quinn a tight hug before turning to the office entrance. She was about to rush out when she saw that Quinn had company. "Hi," greeted Luna when she saw the three girls, immediately following the greeting with, "Bye." And with that, she rushed to the door. "Don't run in the hallways," shouted Quinn just before she exited. "Okay," was all Luna said before she was gone. Daphne, who had turned her head to look at Luna, who had rushed out, turned it back towards Quinn and inquired, "She was in there the entire time?" "Oh yeah, she's been spending a lot of time in there, brewing potions," answered Quinn as he walked back to his bar stool after closing the workshop door. "And why does she brew potions in there and not in the potion wing?" asked Daphne, looking between the workshop door and Quinn. The potion wing in Hogwarts were multiple classrooms with potion workstations where students could practice potion brewing. "Oh right, not many people know it, but Luna is my employee. I hired her as my assistant," answered Quinn. He was still smiling because of Luna's progress with the learning quest he made for her. "She gets to use the space behind the wall." "What is behind the wall?" Astoria chirped in, curiosity evident in her eyes as she looked at the workshop's red door. "That's a secret," smiled Quinn in response. Many people had asked Quinn about the area behind the wall. And all of them had different ideas about what was behind there. Some thought it was a storage room because Quinn brought out their orders from inside. Others assumed it was empty because they never saw Quinn go back there. Now some people like Daphne, Tracy, and Astoria knew that there was at least a potion workstation inside. But no one except Quinn, Luna, Ivy Potter, and whoever she told knew what was inside. "Oh, come on, tell us," inquired Tracy. Now that Quinn refused to tell them, it stirred her curiosity. "Maybe another day. I'll give you a tour of what is behind the wall. I will say this, though, behind the wall, you'll find something enjoyable and of your liking," grinned Quinn, enjoying himself as he increased the allure of the unknown place behind the glass wall and watching how the three girls became even more curious. Tracy and Astoria shifted in their seats, while Daphne narrowed her eyes at the red door. The three wondered what there was inside and had a mental image of what was behind the wall. "Phew, at least now they aren't thinking about what I was doing in the lake," sighed Quinn, feeling relieved that he was successfully able to divert the whole situation. "I somehow need to thank Luna and her timing. What does she like?" She likes to paint." "Okay, then I need to find out what kind of paints and brushes she uses and get a new assortment for her." To make sure that they don't return to yesterday's incident, Quinn shifted the topic of conversation. "So Astoria, tell me what Daphne is like at home." The younger sister's eyes shined as she opened her mouth, and things flew out. The older sister was quick on the outtake and tried to stop her sister. Tracy and Quinn sat back and laughed at the sisters. Scene break. In a cursed building that looked like no one had occupied for years, as there were broken windows, stripped paints, exposed bricks and cracks creeping across the outside, making the building unpleasant to the eye. If the building's facade was in bad shape, then the inside was worse. There were broken tiles, paint falling from every wall, exposed pipes, broken and left behind furniture, mold, and spider webs in every corner. The insides were so dusty and covered with fallen building material that no patch of the floor was empty. It was a building that even the most impoverished squatters would avoid. In that same building lied a man, a dangerously skinny and skeletal-looking man. The man looked sickly and pale, like he hadn't eaten properly in months. The man was exceedingly short, no taller than the average 13-year-old child, with pale grubby waxy skin, small watery eyes, a pointed nose, sunken cheeks and eyes, yellow teeth, and a balding head of reddish hair. If someone looked at the man at the very moment, they would think that the man was a corpse that had died in the building. But the man was no corpse. This man was the greatest betrayer in recent history. Peter Pettigrew. Peter Pettigrew was called by some of his former friends as Wormtail. He began attending Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in 1971 and was sorted into Gryffindor House. After the sorting hat pondered over which house he belonged in for over 5 minutes, a true hat's tall. During his years at Hogwarts, he became one of the Marauders. He was best friends with Sirius Black, James Potter, and Remus Lupin, and together they created the Marauders map. During the First Wizarding War, Peter was a member of the Order of the Phoenix but became a spy when he got forced into joining Lord Voldemort. He was made the secret keeper for the Potters when they went into hiding with the Fidelius charm. But he betrayed James, his wife Lily, and their children Harry and Ivy to Lord Voldemort, leading this to the death of Euphemia and Fleamorn Potter, the parents of James Potter. After Voldemort's fall, he tried to fake his own death and frame Sirius for betraying Fleamorn and Euphemia, as well as for his own murder and those of the 12 Muggles he killed during his escape. But Sirius Black was sharper and more magically capable than Peter and saw through the deception and caught the rat. Peter was arrested by the Department of Magical Law Enforcement and sentenced by Barty Crouch Sr. to life imprisonment in Azkaban. He was charged of 12 crimes of murder with the killing curse and for giving the information about the Potters' whereabouts, which lead to their death by the hands of Lord Voldemort. Peter was placed in solitary confinement at the mercy of the Azkaban guards, the Dementors. But the rat was persistent and had cockroach-like tenacity. That tenacity to live could not be detected by the Dementors, but still allowed him to maintain a sense of self, and regain enough strength to transform into his animagus form in his cell. Since Dementors have difficulty sensing the less complex emotions of animals, he could remain relatively unaffected as a rat. It was not trouble at all to the Immortal Guards, though, since they thought it meant he was losing his mind like every other convict in their custody, including Bellatrix and some of her fellow Death Eaters. Peter spent 12 years living in his animagus form in Azkaban. Just a few months ago, he seized an opportunity and became the only known person to escape the prison unassisted. He did it by transforming into his animagus form of a rat. The decision to escape after 12 years of imprisonment was the news he had heard from the guards. A new terrorist group had been causing chaos outside in the real world. The group had caused stress on the Aura's office to deploy Auras to patrol Muggle areas to guard the unaware Muggle population from any surprise attacks. For the first time in a long time, Wormtail mustered whatever courage he had and decided to escape the hell of the place he was living. The motivation of that escape wasn't to better his own life, but to make someone else's life miserable. In his 12-year incarceration, his former friend, Sirius Black, had regularly visited him to gloat and give him regular news about how great his and his other friends' lives were. Peter couldn't help but hear what Black would tell him about the fame, prestige, and happiness they had gotten after the war. He bragged about how everyone knew about them while he was dumped there in filth, forgotten by everyone. In 12 years, Peter developed an obsession and hateful loathing towards his former friends. He hated Sirius because of his regular visits and hated James and Lupin because they didn't even bother to visit him. He thought that the latter two couldn't even be bothered to visit him because of their glamorous lives. Obsession wasn't something that Dementors could detect, and that was why he kept his sanity even when the Dementors sucked everything worth living for out of him. So for the first time, Peter took action without knowing what laid in his future. He escaped Azkaban to get back his former master to the top so that Voldemort would burn down his former friends to the ground and he could be there as Voldemort did it. He didn't know if Voldemort was even alive, but spending a lot of time in Azkaban with nothing but his thoughts made him convinced that Voldemort was still alive. The sole aim of his life became to see the Black, Potter, Lupin, and therefore the Order of Phoenix to be destroyed. He wanted anyone who opposed Voldemort to suffer because it was their fault that Voldemort had fallen and robbed him of a glorious future. In the broken-down building, Peter Pettigrew opened his gaunt eyes and in them was a strong fire of hatred. This marks the end of part 27 of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.